these two founders, they've recently exploded in, notoriety and success. Shopify Plus partners focusing on healthy food brands, specifically a lot of DMVBs, D2C, which, we work together quite a bit on, including Bobo's Bars, there's Aloha, Cauliflower, Vital Proteins, just to name a few. And it is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Chelsea Jones and Rachel Saul of the one and only agency, Chelsea and Rachel. Welcome, you two.
Thank you. It's our pleasure to be here.
Love that lipstick, by the way.
We're so stoked to be a part of this today. Thanks, Elaine.
Of course, we're so happy to have you guys here. And I'm sorry that we couldn't be doing this in person in Santa Monica, obviously, but it is what it is. So I know that we're all here to talk about growing brands and growing our clients' brands to the first 100 subscribers, but also, beyond that. And so before we, we're going to dive into, what it takes and how to do it, and even some examples of how you guys have done that already. And so before we kind of get started, I think it would be great to hear from the two of you, just to tell us a little bit about yourselves. How did you get here? Why did you start doing this, starting an agency together? Chelsea, I'll throw it over to you first. But yeah, I'd love share with the audience who you guys are.
Oh, well, thank you. First off, it's an honor to be here. We love working with Recharge and building things. Rachel and I's story is kind of unique. We are both busy entrepreneurs, moms, wives. We started our company 6 years ago, which is crazy to think how long it's been. And originally it was just her and I. I had a design and development background. She had a digital marketing background. We know that both needed to mirror each other and work together to make a good holistic brand come to life online. And so we just started. I was actually pregnant with my second son at the time. Rachel has 4 kids. I have 2. I mean, we started unconventionally and in a way of we joke that now we're professional problem solvers. Fast forward to today, we have over 15 staff members on our team, and we just take care of clients. We love to be personal in the brand and in the vision and in what they want to do from like a larger strategy perspective to tactical execution. So in short, even though we love Shopify and Shopify Plus and all things subscription with Recharge, we really joke that we're professional problem solvers and we like to be kind of innovative of it. We're also really grateful to be one of the few women-founded development teams in the country and led that way. And a lot of our staff are women too, men and women on our team. But it's just neat to see like we kind of have that bent and that angle of understanding design and strategy from the experience that we just both have as moms. So healthy food and beverage has kind of become our niche because of that. Like we both like to eat and have snacks. And so what better way than to help companies that provide what we really love, which is snacking and helping have healthy on the go things for our families. And it's been a wild ride. Like for us, COVID has been busy, as I'm sure it is for a lot of you in the tech space. We're all getting busy, subscriptions up, all of this. And I think one of the biggest things we have seen from that is just like, it comes back to communication and clarity. And Rachel and I are very grateful to do that very well with each other. She's not only like my business partner, but we've known each other for a long time too. And even though we're in different locations and different time zones, like we communicate very well. And I think that's what's crucial with any good growing team.
Absolutely. And everything that you said, the journey that you guys have had is unique and inspiring. And, you mentioned, obviously you guys do work with a lot of health food brands, which is inspired from a lot of like personal desires and goals that you guys have. Is it always been that way? Is like health food beverage been what you guys have always focused on, or did that come about after some trial and error?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question. It's really interesting how when you become really excelled and experienced in certain tactics, how you can translate that into passions that you have. And one of the core reasons that we have with our agency, with our team, and with our clients is to make sure that we're making an impact. And we want to work with brands that have a purpose, and they have more of an intention on why they're in the market, why they're growing, why they're scaling. And it aligns really to our core, especially as founders, and working with brands that have healthy food, food alternatives, ingredient alternatives, nutrition, because there is a lot of that that's in our families. And those are near and dear to our hearts as well. And so knowing that we can work with brands who really are on a mission to change, whether it's ingredients or change how people eat or perceive food or nutrition, all of that, it just brings another layer to our work and a passion that we bring to it as well.
Absolutely. And so in terms of, obviously you guys have been doing this for 6 years now, and sort of changing that strategy as you go, like you mentioned. When did subscriptions first come into the picture? Chelsea, is that something that you want to speak to?
So even though we started our agency over 6 years ago, I think Rachel and I have each been in the industry in a way for individually over 15 years. I think with subscription, we saw that really come into play. I mean, honestly, a good solid 5 years ago. I think we've seen the explosion, as everyone, in the last couple of years, because more people are interested in making it on a personal brand level. And it's just been really exciting to see what's possible. And to the point Rachel said, you know, we love healthy food and stuff like that, but that's not the only clients that we serve. We do work with other brands in like home goods or different vitamins and things like that. And sometimes they may not be the typical subscription model as is food, but they've been able to find something that is subscription based. I mean, like in cleaning products, for example, you're going to have those always as a CPG, like ongoing. So it's been really interesting and exciting to see what's possible to really serve customers on a subscription basis. What does that look like? And how do you, obviously the questions we're all looking for, how do we extend that average order value? How do we extend their time on subscription so they don't churn, and just overall brand questions as well?
Totally. I think, is there anything that you would want to add to that, Rachel? I know there's a few follow-up questions that I've already gotten. You made some really good points already.
I think that subscription really for the brands that we work with and really became a core focus when they're looking to continue to drive multiple channels of revenue, and seeing that subscription was a vehicle to not only increase their customer retention rate, but also increase their loyalty and work towards bettering numbers with their total charges and churn rates, using it as a platform to cultivate a lot of that increased customer brand loyalty. And so I think in the last just 2 years, we've really seen an increase in marketing strategies and tactics that's focused specifically upon subscription and leveraging it for that.
Absolutely. And I think what's really interesting too, because I know you touched on, obviously there's a lot of different brands that you guys do work with. And when it comes to the replenishment model, it's a very, it's very easy to apply subscribe and save models to anything replenishment. And I want to circle back to this later, just the idea of what other models can apply even to business, like you mentioned, homewares, that can incorporate that kind of recurring sustainable revenue model that isn't necessarily replenishment. But before we get to that, there's so many questions on deep on layer. I did actually want to talk a little bit about Bobo's, which I know is a client that you guys have been working with for quite a long time, 4 years. And so you guys did some really incredible work with them, and especially around, in many different ways around the portal. And I was just curious, especially in the vein of growing subscriptions, like at the beginning, and then what does it look like after, with the time that you've spent with a brand like Bobo's, what did their strategy look like at the beginning? like 4 years ago versus now, and how does that change, and kind of how do you guys figure out what's necessary as you actually successfully grow these brands that you're working with?
Sure. Yeah. So when we started working with Bobos years ago, we were part of their just initial growth into the Shopify Plus space. So very, very limited amount of people on their email subscriber base, just really getting started, quite honestly, in direct to consumer. We've been able to partner with them for years and be able to support them in a number of facets. Email marketing support, web support, ongoing, and then most importantly, being able to partner with them as they strategically grow in multiple channels and making sure that the experiences are optimized in ways where we're doing the best use of all of these assets of theirs to increase growth and increase revenue. More recently, at the beginning of 2020, we launched Theme Engine. So we upgraded them into the theme editor and gave a very custom experience for their subscribers. The goal really there is just, like I mentioned earlier, how can we increase brand retention, customer retention, loyalty, all of these aspects, and what are ways that we can continue to hit some amazing goals that the brand is looking to achieve this year. And so we created a really smooth and simple UX experience inside the portal that gave the customer exactly what they needed to do to maintain subscription and to not cancel by adding, changing, swapping, all the great stuff. But to speak to what you're mentioning on, well, where are we going and how are we looking at the tools and the tech that we have to really continue that strategy? We're looking at things from a number of angles. First and foremost, user experience, making sure that the customer is actually getting exactly what they need and we're speaking their language. It's not just out of the box, but it's not overcomplicated. So we're always optimizing there, making the shopping experience inside the portal to be really indicative of how the front end looks. So to keep that consistency across the board has been some of the evolution of the portal, I would say. And then as we grow into the end of the year and looking ahead, there's so many opportunities for leveraging new ideas. Gift boxes, bundling, things like that. How can we make a pick and pack type of scenario to really leverage the customer experience? The churn mitigation strategies that we're implementing, unique and very targeted types of messaging and mitigations, not standard, but trying to leverage and see where can we optimize. And then really using subscription as a platform to continue to grow revenue into 2021. Saw a lot of growth, did a lot of testing this year, got some great results, but yeah, there's just a lot that can be done inside the portal. And I just love to encourage anybody who's building inside of Recharge and Theme Engine to really be thinking greater than inside the box. Always think outside the box. Try to use the tech in a way where you're creating experiences that really make an impact and a difference. And always be thinking on how you can best implement what's right for the brand, their messaging, their customer. So those are some of the core areas that we've been supporting with Bobos within the past year, specifically in subscription.
Definitely. And you touched on too, so you started using Theme Engine earlier this year, and all of these things that you're mentioning in terms of strategy and optimizing the customer flow. I actually just wanted to pull up Bobos, so maybe that you could walk us through it. Let me know if you can see this. So we've got,
sure.
If I go to an account here, because I know that they do have, like you said, everything's very individual. There's different structures that every single brand has that you have to abide by, whether that's on the front end or whether that's an architectural difference on the back end. And Bobos, for example, did have, they had a different architecture in terms of how they did variants that you had to work with within the Theme Engine to make sure customers still had a natural flow, right?
Yeah. And this is one of the areas where sometimes as developers, we think in developers terms or speak and maybe within the constraints of Shopify. But every store is set up differently. Every brand's SKU structure is however they've designed it. And so, for example, with with a client like Bobo's is somebody with a lot of the large catalog, but the same type of products with different flavors. We were considering one day, what is it that the customer actually wants to do in this screen right here that we're looking at? They're here to edit their subscription, but we have the base, it's a single SKU that every flavor is their own SKU. So if they wanted to change the product, they'd have to swap the entire product. But I challenged the team as thinking through this and thinking, what does the customer actually want to do? They actually just want to change the flavor. And so we implemented a very simple way to swap the product, but the customer only sees it as a changing of the flavor. All of the same, like the oat bars here are all there, but we're actually on the back end swapping an entire SKU, but the customer just thinks, hey, I'm just going to get a different flavor this next month. It's that seamless and simple as possible. And so those are some of the simple UX thought processes and exercises we went through to really just create a more streamlined experience.
Definitely. And I think you guys did it's exactly like you said. And I know this has been alluded to before as well, as asking questions is so important, figuring out what are the needs of all of these individual brands? What are they looking for? What are their goals? And knowing how their goals are going to be changing over time, because what got Bobo's to a certain point or any brand to a certain point isn't going to get them to the next point. You've got to reinvent, what are these customers? What more can we give? What more malleability? What more ownership do they have over these products that are realistically a part of their life, and everybody wants to have control over their life. So, and like you guys said, I think, Lindy mentioned this earlier too, the busier you are, the more these things, like you almost want these subscriptions that are fueling your life to be as intuitive as possible, because you're busy and you don't have time to, jump through hoops to make small changes. So I think that's really cool what you guys did with them. In terms of a brand like Bobo's, maybe not specifically Bobo's, in terms of, I know you alluded to this too, like next steps. Once they've hit a certain amount of growth, maybe 1,000 subscribers, let's say, are there certain key metrics that you guys look at to hone in on to indicate what the next wave of improvement will be for a brand who hits 1,000 subscribers?
Mm-hmm. That's such a great question. I mean, I think the key is knowing your numbers. Like, we need that as business owners, they need that as brands. And to your point earlier, like we get so complicated in the weeds as developers, like with all the tech terms, but really if you zoom out and you're problem solving, it's supply and demand, it's traditional economics, it's how are you helping people's lives get better? How are you solving this problem? And to the metrics that are super important to grow and continue scaling, just like, as you guys probably know, when you launch an e-commerce site, the first thing you're just trying to get sales. And then eventually you get to a point where you need to conversion rate optimization. So you're actually trying to improve that conversion rate. Well, you can't do that until you have that data. On the next level of scalability growth in subscription, you need to look at your average order value. Can you increase that? You need to look at your churn rate. Can you decrease that? Can you keep people longer? You need to look at really specific numbers on how many subscribers you have, how many are you going after? What does that look like as an acquisition to actually get those customers? And then turn those up, play with it, constantly be looking at the numbers though. And Rachel and I have this really great thought process. Sometimes when we're looking at those or we're analyzing with a client, if you see that let's say their churn rate is really high and how to increase that, even sometimes a little shift can make a big difference. Just like in conversion rate optimization, half a percentage can make a big difference. So you have to think in terms of micro movements and also what's going to impact that. So, and Rachel can talk to this more, but there's some data around about 3 months is that churn rate actively where a lot of people drop off. So if that's the case, how can you communicate to them and say, hey, here's something to keep you on, or here's a free gift, or here's an extra thing to stay on. on your subscription, claim it now or something. You need to be active as a user and how you're thinking of talking to your customer also.
That's such a great point. And I know you mentioned too, so as one of the further points of growth, looking at churn is a really important point. You know, first you're acquiring everyone, then you're making sure that they're actually buying things, and then you're making sure that they actually keep buying things. So are there certain things around churn that you guys look at specifically in terms of, you know, implementation that you would, if someone is experiencing high levels of churn, are there certain points that you would look to say, okay, we're going to implement this on average?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a couple of tactics that some of them are cross-platform, some of them are inside Recharge that we like to work with. It's always critical to have an email marketing automation that centers around charge numbers. So if you know that you do have a drop off, your average charges is maybe 2.5 or 2.7. You want to make sure that leading up to charge number 3, you're going to send an email that just reiterates, these are all of your subscription benefits. This is how much you're saving. You know, you want to try to make sure that in automation, you can communicate those benefits ahead of the notification that they have an upcoming shipment, because that's going to be the trigger to a lot of people will then go and log in and cancel. So you want to reinstate the value benefits of why they're on subscription. But also there's some other tactics that we've been working with specifically with workflows, where knowing our numbers and knowing where we see drop-offs and charges, and then knowing basically the goal as to where we want to get to. So we have a goal right now for one of our clients. We want to get the average charges to increase, so we get the majority of people processing charge 3 and getting a charge 4. And so that's a bit of an upward battle because there are so many factors that go into it. So using workflows within the Recharge platform, we're able to put in motion some strategies to discount a certain upcoming charge, so that when that charge goes through, they get a discounted price as another value added benefit, and it's communicated in the program. So you're letting people know you stick around for 3 months, you're going to get X amount off of your next charge on, that 4th charge. And so it's an incentive. It creates more of a program than just a set it and forget it. And I think the more that you create programs, just like a loyalty program, there's a lot of focus that needs to go into a really quality subscription program that's offline. It's not just online. There's a lot more offline or cross-platform support to really make sure that you leverage subscription to everything it can be for your brand.
That's such a good point. It's a lot of preemptive thinking, right? Gathering, like you said, gathering the data for when these certain triggers typically happen on average, and then preempting those triggers if they're negative, if they're cancellation triggers, with other things that are positive. So you're right. Communication is huge. Keeping a pulse on the communication with the customer and making sure that you're very aware of what they're probably going to do, and then preempting that with something else.
And simply too, I think that even from the Recharge data saying that those subscribers who log into the portal and take action stick around for 2 times longer than those who never logged in at all. And even getting people into the portal and directing their pathway to understand, you can skip, you can change your next shipment date. Those are things to get them around from canceling, give them, and not to say preempt them to do that, but knowing as you're nearing your milestone mark of, where most people drop, those are message points that you get them into the portal, you direct them and show them what they can do. And a simple skip can get them at least another month and maybe in a different place that next month, So there's a lot of techniques inside the portal that can alleviate the need for canceling that, frankly, subscribers might not even know about.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. You're
and
absolutely.
Just to add on to that a little bit, Elaine, kind of to clarify some things, and I noticed there was a couple questions that popped up. One of them was about credit card information from Shopify to recurring billing. Dennis asked that. And I just kind of wanted to clarify, because a lot of people, when we talk about subscription, it is a whole different business model for a brand to do than the traditional one-off Shopify purchases. So the strategy is really that, like, you're not going to be able to get the credit card information from a one-time purchase on Shopify into a subscription model without some action being made from the customer. So it's really great to kind of think through, what is it that you really want to do? If you're going to put subscription on your site, or you're going to build on that, think of it as its own arm of revenue. Just like anybody would think as a brand, like, how do I get revenue? I have maybe a storefront, I have a website, I have this. A subscription should be its own pillar, and it should be what you're actively like growing and actively thinking on how the churn rate, all these conversations we've been talking about, to improve their experience of subscription. And Lisa, you asked about some other types of subscription models. And like a good example, we actually have been talking with a sticker company of all things. Like, stickers are not replenishable. I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to use them like toilet paper cleaners, but you can get them as a collectible item, right? You can have a book and you can have cool stickers that you're doing, and you can get on a subscription box for that. I mean, clothing's another thing. People get subscriptions for all kinds of stuff. The point is to think outside of the box and think of this as its own pillar of business that you can really grow and scale. And Elaine, I think that kind of comes back to your question of like, when you're in that next step, it's true, but subscription for some companies is their main pillar and it's going to grow. For other companies and brands, it's just going to be an arm of it. So I think from a mindset perspective, that's really important as companies are looking at what makes sense from a subscription piece. I encourage almost all companies to have a subscription portal. Like, unless you're furniture, maybe that would be a little weird to subscribe to. But, like, you get the concept, like, what is something small that you can offer that gives people value and keeps them engaged with your brand, even if it's like a card of the month club or something. Mm-hmm.
It's such a good point, Chelsea, and I'm glad that you saw those questions, and definitely keep the questions coming, because you're absolutely right. The idea is, I think subscriptions, the word itself has so many connotations attached to it, and the bigger idea is the idea of some form of recurring billing. And, whether that is attached to a physical product that is attached to that recurring form of billing, which is subscribe and save replenishment models, or whether that is, or collectible stickers, which I'm going to have to look into, or maybe it's not attached to a physical product either. The whole concept of membership models is really interesting. I was actually curious, this is a good segue into it. I was curious on your thoughts, working in a space where there is consumable products. Do you think that there's space for a membership model in the sense where you're sort of paying into exclusivity, or paying into a service, or paying to be part of a community that's giving you extra discounts that may or may not be associated with a recurring product of some kind? Do you guys see that coming into the replenishable space? And I ask that for context because the replenishable space is it's so naturally a subscribe and save model that I'd be interested on your thoughts on how this other idea of recurring billing around exclusivity or benefits could map itself into this model that we're so used to.
Oh, you're speaking my language. And I love to break the mold and to think outside the box. I mean, we've all seen subscription be on the rise on different things, right? Whether it's software, you can't just buy a disc anymore and download it. You have to actually subscribe to it. Whether it's, even like our monthly expenses, right? Electricity, water, whatever, rent, mortgage, those kind of things are ongoing. You have to almost think of what's possible in the business too. And Dennis asked another question, which is funny because I did say about furniture. But yeah, think outside the box. How could a furniture company have a subscription? Maybe it's a happy box of the month club and you send out a candle with a gift card towards their bigger build that they're doing of overhauling their front room or something. I don't know. But the concept is still the same. If the goal is to redesign their whole house, maybe they subscribe to room by room and they get a furniture piece per room. Or like in the sense of the membership, like you said, Elaine, like I love memberships and things. Rachel and I personally, and as a business, have invested in all kinds of online training and mastermind groups and exclusive clubs. Like some of them are great, some of them are not. But what's important is that, you know, there's a point of like value. It's an exchange of value that you're giving as a consumer. And value exchanges are always going to have one of two things, whether it's like the traditional barter system or it's like pay money for something, whether a physical product or a knowledge one. I mean, I personally went and had a great school experience where I went to my alma mater at Pepperdine like 20 years ago. I mean, and it was incredible, but like I paid for that education as well as learning. Education's obviously changed. We're in a massive like increase of information. We're in the information age where you can Google anything and get this much info on it. But to get deeper is where it's really important to also understand how can you learn from others? How can you grow from people that have been there before or have done something? What do you want to do? And then make that problem happen. I mean, entrepreneurs, I really think can help like change the world because in a way you're solving problems. And if you do it with the focus of that, like how do you help others and solve a problem? You're going to also make profit on it, or you're going to not, and you're going to have this impact or whatever the goals are. But you have to have that purpose behind it. And as companies and brands that we're probably talking to, they all want to help their clients or their brands make money. But you have to do that with like a mentality almost of service. Like, how do I take care of this person in a subscription model? What does that look like? Right. So I don't know. I think memberships, masterminds, all that kind of stuff are here to stay. I think they're growing. The whole online coaching is growing. I mean, just in general, mentorship is. So I think it's exciting to see.
Yeah. And I think too, that the model of what we call like subscribe and save has really been around for a really long time, just called different things. And I mean, Redbox, when they would send me, not even Netflix, when it was all DVDs, like that would be, this is dating back well over a decade. Like the subscription economy, you know, has been around and it's nothing new under the sun, right? You just call it different things. And so I think that it's not contained inside these boxes of food, beverage, coffee, clothing, all of these, even furniture. It's not just contained inside these verticals. You can think about subscription really as passive income for a business, and how does that play into what you offer? Many companies right now, if they've been negatively impacted by COVID-19, are trying to reinvent themselves in different ways and providing different services, even providing their product through different channels or different target audiences. How could you possibly even think about reinventing the products or services that you provide in a way where it creates more of a recurring monthly revenue that gives, whether it's digital access to things at discounted prices, or there's different ways that you leverage the framework. And I think we just like to encourage always think broader, think of things differently, look at it from a different angle. There's possibility everywhere.
You guys are absolutely right. And I really like that phrase you used, Rachel, too, of leveraging the framework, because essentially that's what it is, as a software is a framework of rules that you can work within, but you can really apply those rules in any way that you want. And for Dennis, when it comes back to furniture too, there's a few clients on Recharge who use furniture rentals. So they use Recharge as the rental for furniture rental. So again, there's so many ways to go about it. If you're creative, if you can sort of apply the framework of some kind of recurring billing to all of these different methodologies, you're going to be able to find something that works really well and really uniquely. Now I know, keep the questions coming too. We've got maybe about 7 minutes or so left. I actually wanted to come back to Rachel. You were talking about just the amount of work when you guys really look at building out a customer portal, and the amount of sort of customizations that you can do. And so I wanted to just share this because this is something that you guys have worked on as well. And this was actually one of the biggest migrations this year, which you guys did, which was incredible. And you guys rebuilt this entire portal using Theme Engine, which is really, really cool. And so I was wondering if maybe you wanted to kind of walk through what
Sure.
the framework, if you want us to call it that.
Absolutely. So this is a hybrid execution where we leverage theme engine, recharges, endpoints, all of the access we have there along inside the account. Liquid, a Shopify code, and customizer. What Vital Proteins really wanted to do, being that the majority of their orders is recurring revenue, creating an experience inside of the account, which I always feel, behind the scenes is one of the most important places that you could put so much time into development, and it sometimes gets no attention to detail at all. As subscribers, you're going to always be in the account. So we wanted to encourage them to have a shopping experience that is somewhat mirrored on the front end, but draws them through benefits, draws them through adding subscription, managing subscription, and keep them in the marketing side of it, the product focused side. And then when it came to the subscription hub, it wanted to be very, very simple, very straightforward, no bells and whistles, to keep it simple and to mirror. So the cards that you see here in this format really mirror the front end PDPs. So in a card layout, and then we going into the managing part of the subscription, we really just wanted to keep it very simple. They can go through and do all of their simple, change the product, change delivery, shipment, payment, billing, all of that stuff is all the same. We have a pop out side. If you want to hit the product on the left-hand side to edit, everything pops out on a side panel. So the experience really happens here, keeping things very straightforward. Great mobile experience. It condenses to mobile, fantastic. Easy swap changes there. So we have developed this experience that builds a hybrid that creates a destination for subscribers. And this is just an exercise of thinking outside the box. How could we leverage and do more using the framework and the features of Theme Engine, and then the crossover between that and the Shopify Liquid coding that we can do as well.
Yeah, I really like because it really is, it's such a home for, you want it to be a shopping experience, like you said, it's almost like you want to recreate this whole other flow once someone's already bought in. Because when it's more or less not having a subscription, but buying into that brand. It's like, I'm here to stay. What does my experience look like now? And you guys did a really incredible job with that. So well done. A shameless plug from me to you.
And I have a few shameless plugs too, because quite honestly, I just wanted to say, like, if you guys haven't worked hand in hand with the tech team at Recharge, so Nick is amazing, leading migrations. I mean, he went with us through the entire thing towards the end. Amazing job. I mean, I have this saying that proper planning prevents poor performance. It's like a lot of P's, alliteration, but as a mom, that's like my saying. But it's true. And then this project that really created an extremely well executed massive migration. We had another great partner too. The team at Sea Monsters was awesome, and some custom scripting. So great shout out to them too for helping us get it over the line. There's just a lot of things go on with that. So overall, just what I would say a key takeaway from that in the theme engine world that we're talking about, customer portal, is just imagine bigger and create an experience. That's really what you want to drive people to engage with as an experience. Where it makes sense, not overboard. There's a lot of strategy behind what you saw there. But yeah, so just think bigger sometimes.
Yep. Think bigger. And I mean, to the point of massive migration, we're talking in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So this wasn't like, oh, you just migrated some people. It's definitely was a big numbers game. And it went very smoothly, all things considered. And I think we're grateful for all of the people that have jumped in to help. And again, just professional problem solving, because that's how you can, again, think outside the box, like your subscription, what's possible? What would that number look like if it was, 10 times, 100 times, thousands of times bigger?
No, absolutely. And like you said, it's a team effort. If communication is so important, and this is why today is so important for us too, because we want to be able to keep all of these lines of communication open. We want everyone to know the newest and the best tools that you can use and all the support that you can possibly have. And so before we wrap up this panel, I did just want to call out the fact that you guys do have a book coming out that I think literally was today, which all of your agency learnings over the last 6 years. So congratulations to you guys on releasing that. Huge props. The link is in the chat too, if anyone's interested in checking that out.
Thank you. And yeah, we're doing a book giveaway. So if you guys want to sign up on our website and that link, we're going to give some away. And we're just, thrilled and honored. It is a big bucket list item for us. And COVID kind of put it into high gear. We're like, we need to talk about this now. So it was really good. And yeah, we're thrilled to finally get out there with some findings that are written down as well as Audible. So.
Well, thank you guys so much. Chelsea and Rachel, you guys are amazing. Thanks for sharing everything with us today, all of your insights, successes, trials. Your hard work and ingenuity is truly, truly appreciated by everyone here on the Recharge team and our mutual merchants, of course.